Hello, and welcome back to Too Many Books. My name is Sean, and today I'd like to talk to you about Running with the Demon by Terry Brooks. This particular edition that I'm showcasing here is the lettered edition from Cemetery Dance, but it's available in a trade release as well as an upcoming Grim Oak Press title. But I'll talk more about that after I'm done talking about the novel itself. So let's dive in. This was originally published back in 1997, and at this point, Terry Brooks was solely the author of Shannara or Shannara, however you want to pronounce it. He had been completely within the Four Lands up to this point in his career. Running with the Demon was the first chance of breaking out from the stories that he had been writing. And although he did eventually retcon it back in as being a prequel to Shannara, at the time it was its own standalone. I don't know if urban fantasy is really the right word for it, but that's what we'll go with. It is a classic story of good versus evil. It takes place in the small town of Hopewell, Illinois, and there are two figures that have arrived in town. It is the 4th of July weekend, and there are two newcomers. The first is the evil demon, the titular demon, who is there to sow chaos and bring the world into darkness. The other is John Ross. He is a knight of the Word. What is the Word? The Word is the good. You know, there is the Word and the Void. This is the first book in the Word of the Void Trilogy. The Word stands for justice and peace in the world and a brighter future. The Void stands for chaos and bringing it down. And caught in the middle is young Nest, a teenage girl with a peculiar name who finds herself as the catalyst of this story. She finds herself being pulled, being the target of both forces, one who wants to save her soul, one who wants to corrupt her soul. And the fate of the world essentially hangs in the balance within the decisions of Nest. Nest is a very peculiar child. She has some strange magical abilities. She's able to see a mythical cat-like beast called Wraith, almost like a giant like ghost wolf, if you will. She works alongside Pick, a little Sylvan, a little pictorial Groot with... he doesn't have wings. He flies on an owl. A little Groot-looking guy, who's there to help protect the forest from all sorts of evil. She finds herself capable of seeing feeders, these dark figures who, well, as the name suggests, feeds on the emotions and suffering of others, and finds herself trying to protect her young friends from the feeders and their influence. And, it's just a classic good versus evil story, which is probably both a good thing and a bad thing. If you like that type of story, you'll probably like this. But at the same time, it is going to hit on a lot of cliches along the way. So, it doesn't necessarily do too much to break from the mold of the good versus evil story. Nest herself is actually a really good protagonist. I mean, I love the characterization that Terry Brooks provides in this story when it comes to her. However, that being said, I will say one of the weak points of this novel is all of the other characters. The demon and John Ross are decent enough. I mean, it's kind of almost like a Terminator sort of thing. You have Terminator and Kyle Reese, both trying to protect Sarah Connor, but in this case, Sarah Connor is a young teenager who, she's almost like John Connor, if you will, from Terminator 2. Your T-800 and T-1000 fighting over John Connor, knowing that he can grow up to essentially save the world, or in this case with the novel, destroy it. They're decent enough characters. There's not too much characterization to either of those characters. The other characters, they're all right. You don't really learn too much about Nest's friends, her other young, her peers. Nest's grandfather and grandmother are all right. Nest, I should say, is an orphan, as one can expect in this type of story. Nest's grandmother is very aware of the magic within them and the calling of Nest, but decides to withhold a lot of the important information that Nest should know. And that's one of my big complaints about it, is that her and John Ross are both guilty of this, and that's withholding information. They like to exclude pieces of information that could be proved to be very vital for Nest. And it makes sense if they provided all the information up front. It would be a very short novel. Things could be over very quickly. But by excluding the information, it ends up leading to situations that didn't need to occur, which obviously that is going to be how the novel plays out. That's going to be found in many novels. But I mean, there are literally characters who die in this novel because of the exclusionary dialogue presented by Gran or by John Ross. Like, what are you guys doing? And then there's Pick. I mentioned him earlier, little Groot guy. He is perhaps the worst character in the whole novel, in my opinion. He is a Sylvan who kind of serves as the Al-Anon of this novel. You know, he's the wise little one. And just like Al-Anon in the original Sword of Shannara, he talks exclusively in exposition. Everything Pick says, other than criminy all the time, which he throws out like he's salting his dinner, all he does is provide exposition. Exposition of the magic, exposition of the dangers, exposition on the feeders, exposition on the evil tree that's keeping evil beasts at bay. Like, all he does is talk in exposition. Actually, I take that back. You know when he doesn't talk in exposition? Is when he's talking in, like, layman terms. You know, like, when he's not explaining the plot, he's explaining something that happened and detailing it out, like Sherlock Holmes coming in at the end of a Sherlock Holmes story and telling you this, A, B, and C. That's exactly what happened. You know, when Nest is scratching her chin saying, I wonder what that was about. Nest is like, Pick comes in, he's like, you know what? I'm going to tell you exactly what that is. It's like, it's so annoying. Pick is so annoying. I'm sure there are people out there that love Pick, but I am not one of them. He's just such a poorly written character. Which is a shame, because, I mean, the heart of the story itself is decent. I will say, I actually found, I mean, this was written in 97, a full 20 years before Gwendy's Button Box was published, but I kept finding myself comparing the two. I liked Gwendy's Button Box. I thought the sequels were garbage, but I thought the first one was good on its own merit, and I definitely think this one's good on its own merit. I'm going to follow it up with the sequels next, so I don't know if the same can be said of the Gwendy sequels, but we'll see what happens here with Nest's sequels. But both Gwendy's Button Box and Running the Demon both feature young teenage protagonists with goofy names. Both take place in small towns that have, like, sheer cliff faces. I mean, she saves a kid from the cliff, falling off the cliff in Running the Demon, whereas Gwendy's running up and down the suicide stairs or suicide steps in Gwendy's Button Box. And they both find themselves kind of the catalyst or finding an unfathomable power in their hands that holds the potential of the fate of the world in their hands. I mean, Gwendy's essentially given that power with the Button Box. Nest already had that power within her and finds herself kind of thrust into it. But there's such similarities there. I mean, also, you could probably find similarities between this and Magica, which Magica was actually published prior to this. Gwendy's was after, Magica prior. Magica dealing with good and evil, both coming into a small town. Although there are significantly fewer sexually deviant situations in Running the Demon here, whereas good versus evil are making little sperm demons in a Magica. There's no sperm demons in this. There's just magical beasts named Wraith who come up to save the day at every possible opportunity. Kind of like Deus Ex Machina whenever danger strikes. But all in all, I think Running the Demon was still a very enjoyable read. I mean, yeah, the side characters are kind of weak, but I mean, being driven by Nest alone honestly kind of gets you through the novel. You just, you're going to roll your eyes every time Pick opens his mouth, but that's, to be expected with a character like that. Also, as I mentioned, this is the first of a trilogy, but it does really stand on its own. I mean, if there were no sequels, I would be totally fine with that. This was a nice standalone novel. It doesn't need any sort of follow-ups. But anyways, if you're in the mood for a nice little good versus evil story, check out Running with the Demon by Terry Brooks. It is available as a trade release back in the 90s. I'm sure there's been other releases since then. Back in 2015, Cemetery Dance did a numbered and lettered edition. Lettered edition is what you see before you here, bound in this little bonded leather with silver page edges. And of course, the frontispiece here is the dust jacket artwork by Tomislav Tikulin. The numbered edition has this on the dust jacket, albeit with the text on it. Both are decent enough editions. If you want an even fancier edition, Grimrock Press is producing one. They're doing a numbered and a lettered edition, which are going to be regular size books. This one is oversized. It's going to be signed by Brooks and Lixin Yin, who is the artist, who is actually providing full color plate interiors for the book, whereas this one does not have any interiors. It's just that cover artwork. So I think that would be more bang for your buck, although that will be a pricier edition by its own right. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. Check out Running with the Demon if you want a nice little good versus evil, or if you want a break from Shannara when it comes to Terry Brooks and his charm. His writing style is definitely the same within this, but it's obviously a vastly different setting. Be sure to subscribe to the channel here. I am going to read and then review Night of the Word and then Angel Fire East, the second and third books in the Word and the Void Trilogy. I do at least one book review a week with plenty of unboxings in between here and there. And now there's a car alarm going off outside, so I think that's perfect timing. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.